In the autumn of 1885, Michael Reeves began building his house. Not with timber, but with sun-dried mud.
You are building a desert hut in a place where winter kills men, Reeves.
Timber's scarce, and I don't have coin for board feet. But I've got clay.
He pressed straw-flecked clay into wooden molds and set the bricks to dry under the thinning mountain sun.
That mud will crumble the first freezing rain. It's not fit for a dog kennel.
Let them laugh. The old accounts say thick walls hold heat like the earth itself.
Foot by foot, he stacked the tan blocks into walls thick enough to stop a winter wind that hadn't yet arrived.
He'll be shivering in a pile of dirt by Christmas, and I'll be warming my hands by a proper stove.
The neighbors watched and shook their heads, seeing only a stubborn man and his mud bricks. He built his walls from sun-dried mud bricks. Then the worst winter in memory froze the whole town. His sister Sarah climbed the hill one afternoon, her shawl pulled tight against the sharpening cold.
Michael, this isn't the desert. Mud won't hold when the snow piles up.
It's not about being dry, Sarah. It's about thermal mass. Thick walls soak up heat during the day and release it all night.
He believes it. But what if Frank's right? What if the first freeze turns these walls to mush?
Before she could answer, Frank Harris's heavy boots sounded on the frozen path.
I'll wager $20. Those walls are rubble by spring.
I've read the old settlers' journals. They built with adobe here before cheap lumber made everyone forget.
Those records are fool's comfort. Reeves, this isn't some desert pueblo.
Why won't he listen? Frank's right. Mud belongs in dry country. Not here. But Michael's never been wrong about the land.
Michael didn't argue. He lifted another brick, and the winter wind answered in his place. Over the next 3 weeks, Michael finished the foot-thick walls and laid a simple plank roof.
It looks primitive against their milled lumber, but the old journals swear by it.
I still say, you are as stubborn as the clay you are using, but I won't let you face it alone.
That's more than most. Thank you, Sarah.
Together, they sealed the last seams and hung the single wooden door. The house was finished.
It's done, but the real test hasn't even started.
Michael stood on the threshold and stared at the sky. The air had turned sharp, carrying the scent of snow. Then the first snowflake drifted down, so small it was barely a white fleck against the gray.
So it begins.
The town below watched and waited for the mud to fail, but no one guessed what winter was truly bringing. That night, the cold descended without mercy. Frost bloomed on every window in the valley.
The moment of truth. Let the walls prove what the books promised.
The flames licked the adobe, and within an hour, the chill vanished. The walls began to radiate a steady, dry heat.
I couldn't get warm in my own house. How is it? Like summer in here? Maybe thermal mass isn't just a theory. But will it last through wet snow?
The clay absorbs the fire's heat slowly and gives it back all night. That's why the walls are so thick.
A shout cut through the quiet from the path outside.
One warm afternoon. Don't prove nothing, Reeves. Wait till the snow turns to rain.
It's a dry heat, Frank. And the walls are a foot thick. They'll hold.
Later, Michael inspected the wall by lantern light. The adobe was cool to the touch, but solid. By winter's first month, Frank Harris threw open his doors for a gathering, eager to show off his modern home.
Coal-fed stove, double-layered plank walls, real insulation. Not like that mud oven up the hill. Reeves' place felt warm last week. That's just because it's small and the fire never stops.
But as the night wore on, a thin draft snuck through the plank seams, making the candles dance.
Nothing a little more coal can't fix. This house was built for mountain winters.
He's burning double the fuel, and still the cold creeps in.
The guests pulled their coats tighter, though no one dared say aloud what they felt.
This is the finest house in the valley. When the real snows come, you'll all wish you'd built like me.
When the real snows come, I'll be warm while his walls bleed heat into the night.
The party ended early. Frank's confidence, however, remained unshaken. For now, an early blizzard hammered the valley with wet snow that froze into a crust by morning. Michael's thick walls held steady, but after a freeze-thaw cycle, a hairline crack split the exterior.
There! The mud's already splitting. Won't last another freeze.
Michael, is the wall failing? I can't ignore cracks like Frank says.
It's a surface crack, Sarah. Adobe breathes. A little mud plaster and it's good as new.
What if Frank's right? What if this crack is just the first of many?
I told you all that mud house would fail. It's already breaking apart.
By sundown, the whole town was murmuring that the adobe house was doomed.
Let them talk. The old walls of Taos Pueblo stood for centuries through worse.
The crack was sealed, but the rumor had done its damage. The real test had still not arrived. A town meeting was called as the cold deepened. The room grew tight with worry and wood smoke.
Thick adobe doesn't just insulate, it stores heat. The walls soak it up and release it all night.
Thermal mass? We're in the mountains, not the desert. Your theory won't hold.
My granddaddy's house was mud. It stood 50 years, through winters worse than these.
The room went still. No one had ever spoken of adobe in the valley before.
The old settlers knew. But will anyone believe a forgotten truth?
That's folklore. We're in a modern age. Mud can't compete with milled lumber.
The debate moved on, but Thomas's words stuck like a burr under the town's skin.
I've built these houses. Trust me, when the hard frost comes, you'll see.
The meeting ended with Frank's voice on top, but a seed had been planted in the cold soil. The next storm struck colder than the last, piling drifts higher than a man's waist.
Did you hear that? It sounded like timber cracking.
Through the whiteout, he saw the Henderson place, its plank roof bowing under the weight of snow.
Get your children. Leave the rest. The roof won't hold.
He dragged the family through the drifts, their breath freezing in the air, until the adobe door swung open. Inside, the rescued family huddled near the fire, their shivering fading as the thick walls radiated a steady, dry heat.
Look at them. They were half frozen. Now they're warm as if it's spring.
The walls hold the heat, Mrs. Henderson. You are safe here.
I never thought mud could do this, but I am starting to see it now.
Frank was not among them. He stayed inside his drafty mansion, still refusing to believe. More families braved the drifts to reach the adobe house, finding warmth that needed little fuel.
A few logs last the night. The clay holds the sun's heat and the fire's breath.
Half the wood, twice the warmth. Michael was right all along.
At Frank's house, his wife wrapped their shivering child and begged him to swallow his pride.
I won't crawl to Reeves. My house will hold. It must.
My granddaddy's mud house stood thicker than a man is wide. In storms like this, the whole valley gathered inside. The cold never touched us. Those walls breathed heat back all night.
Firelight flickered over the huddled faces, and the adobe walls seemed to defy the storm with quiet warmth.
The old settlers understood. But this storm isn't over yet.
Outside, the wind howled. Inside Frank's house, the water bucket began to freeze. As the blizzard took a short breath, Michael knelt beside Thomas and asked what had been burning in his mind.
I still have the proof, son. My grandfather's photograph and the journal he left behind.
Thomas pulled a dented tin box from beneath the bench and lifted out a faded photograph. Beside it lay a small leather journal, its pages yellowed and brittle, built foot-thick walls of clay and straw. The winter could not bite through.
It's all here. The old settlers used adobe, and it never failed them.
The journal described winters that froze rivers solid, but inside the mud brick homes, fires barely needed feeding.
I hid that box because I was ashamed of the past. But you, Michael Reeves, you've brought it back.
This changes everything. Frank needs to see this. The whole town needs to see it.
The proof sat heavy in his hands, but the worst winter was still gathering force beyond the walls. The blizzard struck with a killing air, no one in the valley had felt in a generation. Michael stood at his window, watching drifts mount past the roof beam.
The walls are still warm. Even with the fire banked, the heat doesn't leak.
I've never seen anything like this, Michael. The whole valley must be frozen solid.
We'll be all right. The adobe holds heat for hours. We barely need the fire.
At Frank Harris's house, the cold began to win. Frost spread across the wallpaper like a white vine.
The stove's burning hot, but the walls feel like ice. It's sucking the warmth right out.
A window pane cracked under the pressure of ice, shattering inward with a sound like broken bells.
We need more blankets. The house will hold. It has to hold.
The temperature outside had dropped to 40 below, and the storm was only beginning. Inside the freezing house, with ice creeping up the walls, Frank's wife pleaded, her voice trembling louder than the wind.
Get your coats. We can't stay here another hour. The walls are freezing solid.
He wrapped his child in the last dry blanket, pulled open the door, and stepped into the howling white abyss. They fought through chest-deep drifts, blind and gasping, until the warm amber glow of the adobe house cut through the storm. Frank's fist hammered the thick adobe door, the blows swallowed by the wind's scream.
Reeves, open up. For the love of God, my family.
The door swung open. Michael's face was stone, but his arms reached out and pulled them all inside. The crowded room went dead silent, every eye fixed on the man who had mocked them all winter.
I can't lift my eyes. The warmth of these walls feels like a verdict I never wanted to hear.
Outside, the storm screeched louder, but the thick walls of clay and straw held firm. The silence inside the adobe house felt heavier than the storm, broken only by the child's quiet sobbing.
There's room by the fire. No one gets refused tonight.
No anger, no gloating. Just a door that opened. It's worse than any insult.
Let me take the little one for a moment. You need rest.
This is the old way. When I was a boy, the whole valley came to my granddaddy's mud house in winters like this.
The same method that saved them then is saving us now. Foot-thick adobe. It never failed.
I was so sure. All that money, all that lumber, but the cold just bled right through.
Outside, the blizzard screamed with renewed fury, but not a single draft dared enter the sealed walls of clay.
We'll make the wood last. If we ration, we can hold out until the sky breaks.
The worst winter in memory had turned Michael's desert hut into the only safe harbor for miles. By the third day trapped inside the adobe house, the woodpile had shrunk to a few nights' worth.
We have to cut the fire by half. It'll be cold, but the wood has to last.
He's asking them to shiver so they can survive another week. Nobody will thank him for it.
I can give up my blanket for the little one.
The room accepted the rationing with tight lips and drawn faces. Even the fire seemed to burn weaker.
The walls still radiate heat, but the window leaks cold. I'll put my coat over the child.
Outside, the thermometer read 50 below and still dropping. The storm refused to break.
In my granddaddy's time, they'd pile dried clay bricks against the door to block the draft.
Then we'll do the same. Sarah, help me stack the extra bricks near the entry.
The walls of the desert hut held back the killing cold, but survival was no longer just about heat. On the fourth day, the last scrap of dried meat was divided into slivers, so thin you could see the firelight through them.
There's nothing left in the larder, Michael. Not even a handful of flour.
The seed grain. One planting's worth for a whole field. Enough for a pot of gruel tonight.
He pulled the small sack from under his cot and emptied it into the kettle without a word.
You'd give up your spring crop for us?
If we don't make it to spring, there'll be no one to plant.
That grain was all he had left of Mother's garden. I saw him save it since summer.
The kettle bubbled with a watery broth that smelled of salt and sacrifice.
I have a flask of brandy hidden in my coat. Never touched it, for the children to keep warm.
Outside, the wind howled like a dying animal. but the walls of adobe stood silent and strong. On the 5th day, the hunger gnawed at them like a second cold. Michael stood by the frosted window, his jaw set.
You can't go out there, Michael. The wind will tear you apart before you reach the tree line.
Let me go instead. It's the least I can do after everything.
I know the Henderson cellar better than anyone. I helped them shore it up last summer. There's a salt pork barrel. If I don't make it back, the journal has to be seen. Give it to Sarah. The whole town needs to remember.
I am going with you. I am not losing you to this storm.
Number. You are the only one who understands the clay mix. If something happens to this house, you are the only one who can repair it.
He took the leather journal from his coat and pressed it into her hands. She clenched it against her chest. The adobe door swung open, and the blizzard tore at the frame. Michael stepped into the white without looking back. In seconds, the house's glow was a ghost behind him. The wind shrieked, but he forced his legs through drifts that reached his ribs. He navigated by memory, counting fence posts buried under the snow until his frozen hands touched the Hendersons' collapsed roof.
The cellar hatch is under the back drift. If the pork's still there, we live another week.
The salt pork barrel was frozen solid, but he dragged it out inch by inch, his lungs burning with the -50 air. The blizzard swallowed the landscape whole. For one endless minute, he stood blind, unable to find his own tracks.
Don't stop moving. The adobe wall rises due east. Walk into the wind until you hit the fence line.
The rope went taut as he pulled the barrel through the drifts. Each step a battle against the screaming wind. The amber window of the adobe house punctured the gray like a coal ember. He fell against the door.
He's back. Get the door. Help me pull him in.
You are frozen through. Sit by the fire. Now.
The journal. Keep it safe until the sky clears. The whole valley needs to remember.
On the 8th day, the wind stopped. A heavy silence fell over the valley like a held breath.
The sky is clearing. Michael, look, sunlight.
He drove his shoulder against the door, cracking the wall of snow until a blade of light cut through. The world outside was a graveyard of fallen roofs and shattered pipework, steam hissing into the frozen air. Frank Harris stood where his grand house had stood, now a shell of icy timber and broken glass.
All that money, those modern walls, they never had a chance.
The survivors, hollow-eyed and trembling, gathered before the one building still standing, the adobe hut.
I was wrong. I was so convinced. But the truth is, mud and straw saved us, not my lumber.
Built with clay and straw. The winter could not bite through. Our first settlers knew this.
The desert house, mocked and doubted, had not only survived, it had become the proof that the old way was never wrong. As the crowd dispersed, a young carpenter and his wife approached Michael, their faces lined with weariness and hope.
You want to build with adobe? Clay? Straw? Sun? It's how this valley was first built.
Frank watched from the ruins of his own home, then bent and lifted a fresh adobe brick from the pile.
I'll make good on that bet. I'll help build the next house with my own hands.
The journal has the exact mix Thomas's grandfather used. We'll share it with every family.
I'll copy the pages tonight. No one in this valley should forget again.
By the week's end, the first new bricks were drying in rows, the mud pits alive with voices.
My granddaddy would have wept to see this, the old way. It was never really gone, just sleeping.
The worst winter in memory had done what decades of forgetting could not. It made the valley remember. Michael stood on his porch and watched the first wall of the new season rise from the thawing earth.
I watched the neighbors today. They're looking at adobe the way I finally looked at you, with trust.
It wasn't me, Sarah. It was the old wisdom in that journal. I just refused to forget.
I kept telling myself you were a fool because I was afraid of being wrong, afraid of losing my pride.
Fear is colder than any winter, but you are past it now. That brick in your hand proves it.
And so the valley rebuilt, block by sun-dried block. the same clay and straw that had been mocked now saving them.
My granddaddy used to say, "The earth never forgets how to keep a man warm. It just waits for someone to remember."
Next spring, I'll plant Mother's garden again. Some seeds need the cold to grow, just like us.
The desert house, once an oddity, became the blueprint for a new valley. The journal's pages were copied and passed from hand to hand.
It held. Through the ridicule, the blizzard, the doubt, it held because the old way was never wrong.
And when the next winter's first snow fell, no one called it a desert hut. They called it the warmest house in the valley. Months later, the snowfields melted into streams, and the valley smelled of wet earth and new grass.
I copied the last of the journal onto good paper. The schoolhouse will keep it now.
Good. No one will forget again. Clay and straw, it's part of this place now. The walls never felt cold, even when I pressed my palm against them in the dead of night.
The house stood, its walls the color of the earth from which it came, as if the valley itself had risen to hold them.
Mother would have loved this. Her garden now, and a house that won't let winter in.
Winter tried to break us. It broke everything else, but not these walls, not this ground.
In time, other walls rose from the same clay, their thick shoulders braced against the coming winters.
We built a desert hut where it snows, Sarah, and it kept us alive.
The worst winter had passed, and the warmest house in the valley stood silent, solid, and forever remembered. Years later, the adobe walls still stood, their surface smoothed by rain and wind but never breached.
I still find comfort in these walls, even when the wind howls.
It's the earth, Sarah. It remembers how to hold on to the sun.
Thomas Gray had passed the winter after the great blizzard, but not before seeing a dozen new adobe homes rise.
He died with that journal open on his lap, a smile on his face.
The old way is safe now. The children in the schoolhouse learn it alongside their letters.
The valley no longer forgot. Each autumn, they mixed clay and straw, and the sound of mud pits was the sound of preparation.
We built a house that outlasted the coldest winter on record. Not bad for desert mud.
The desert house, as it was once called, became simply the Reeves house, and then just home. And in the quiet of a winter evening, with snow piling softly outside, the thick walls held the family safe, just as they had from the beginning.